All right, so in this video we're going to dive into the electronics of our Outlaw build, and this will explain these, talk about these a little bit, and this will also help with other builds you do as well if you're going to build the FT Explorer later this semester or whatever other plane there might be out there. Pretty similar for a lot of these. Again, sorry for the weird angle, just how the camera has to be, but at least you can see everything, and hopefully it's a little bit clearer than it was before. Move that back. Okay, so up here on the table I have all the supplies that you should have received in the class, or you should have grabbed when the instructor said, hey, come grab your servos and all that stuff. Okay, all these are all things we'll need as far as assembly into the plane itself. So I have 3 servos here. These have previously been used, so that's why they're unwrapped and everything. But yours will probably come in a nice little box like this or something, and you'll be able to pull those out, unwrap them, get them set up, get them centered. Okay, there's another video, a separate video about centering servos that I made. You want to watch that one. You want to have your servos centered up. These 3 are all centered already, so I'm not going to be doing that in this video. So you have 3 servos, one for the elevator, one for each aileron. Okay, there's those. We have our ESC. Okay, so this is our 20 amp ESC with an XT60. Okay, perfect. This little box here is our motor. So we can open that up. Your motor should look very similar to this. Little bags of parts in there we'll go over in a minute. We have our motor there. Okay. We have a propeller, which we won't need until the very end really, so we can kind of put that aside. We have our motor mount, this little 3D printed motor mount. And then we have a receiver and a transmitter to help us get that going. These pieces of foam from our plane that go on the top of the little pod we don't need to worry about for right now, so we'll kind of put those aside. Okay. But we're going to kind of figure out how we're going to get all this stuff onto the plane. So let me move a couple of these things like the prop out of the way. We don't need the transmitter for a minute here. Okay, we're going to focus on the components themselves, where they're going to go on the plane, so you can kind of get an idea of what's going to go where. Let's grab the plane here. So here's our Outlaw. We finished building in the other previous videos. Okay, and the way this works is this little motor mount. Once we've attached the motor and everything, is going to sit right up in here. So right in the back there of the pod area. Okay, I'm going to help you guys figure out where to actually put it when we put the motor on, but it's going to sit right there and glued in. This is why I reminded you guys to not put too much glue along these seams, because it won't, the mount won't sit down as far as it should if there's a bunch of glue blobbed up in the corners. So that'll sit there. The motor will be mounted on there, of course. Make a little cutout for the wires here in the back. Let's zoom in a little bit. Maybe this will be a little bit easier to see. Okay, so the motor mount's going to sit here in the back like this, motor mounted there. We're going to cut a little chunk of foam out here so the wires can go down and around. They're going to wrap down and around. Let's see if you can kind of see that. The motor will sit here. The wires should wrap down and around into this bottom compartment hatch thing. Okay, and we'll route those, of course, a little bit better than that, but that's the idea. The motor will go like that. Okay, sit there like so. And there's lots of different ways to do this. I mean, you don't have to do exactly how I'm doing it. I'm just showing you what I think is a good way to do it, but you can run the motor wires a different way if you want to, and put things at other places if you want to. The important part is to keep the motor wires out of the propeller. That's really important. Okay, so if we do it this way, where we have the motor wires running, you'll have some pretty long motor wires, okay? And they should reach all the way up here. If you have shorter ones, that's okay. We got plenty of extra wire. If we take our ESC here, okay, our ESC is going to plug into our motor wires, 1, 2, 3, and we can have the ESC kind of tucked up in here in the nose there. Maybe have some Velcro and have it stuck to the side of the plane perhaps, okay? And allow that to just kind of rest right there. We do want the ESC to get some cooling, so we might cut a little cooling hole right here so the air can kind of flow through and cool the ESC off, depending on how hot it's going to get when we're flying. Okay, we want to keep everything kind of below deck here, because our battery is going to sit right up here, right on the top, kind of. So we can't have too much stuff sticking out up here, because the battery is longer than this piece. It's going to stick out a little bit into this empty area here once we attach it. So just keep that in mind as you're doing things here. Okay, so there's our motor ESC situation. Let's zoom out a little bit. We have our ESC, or our servos as well. We're going to attach to the plane. And you can do the servos on the top or the bottom of the plane. The lab tech, the employee who built the plane, said he put his on the bottom to try to keep things under the center of gravity, under the wing, to keep the weight lower, and that totally makes sense. So he mounted his servos on the bottom of the plane. Okay. we're going to have basically one servo for each aileron. Maybe this one better over here. I'm not sure what these were used for before. Let's see if there's one that would fit better. These all look about the same. Maybe this one. You're going to have each servo, each spot here. Okay, if you're going to do them on the underside of the wing, you do them on the underside or the top, vice versa. Doesn't matter, however you want to do it. Okay, but on the top, they'll sit in this basically the same spot there, right on the top of the wing, and be connected up later to the control horn, which we'll put into that surface. Okay, so one here, and the elevator servo, you can actually mount kind of on this little platform here. And these control rods, we're going to be making new control push rods for this, but this one's a little bit short for that. We can mount this servo right here, okay, and have the push rod reach back to the elevator control surface there. Okay, so we'll do that one last probably because it's a little bit different than these two, but that's basically where everything will go on the plane. Okay, and we talked about those little access holes earlier. The access holes we were trying not to cover up too much with the glue when we did the seams right here. That's so that you can run your servo leads into the pod area here. See if I can wiggle this one through. There we go. Okay, just like so. And then it allows it to go and then be plugged into the receiver. Okay. Now, depending on where you put your servos, you may or may not want to run them on the top. And if you're going to have the servos on the bottom, that's fine. Get this stuff off here for a second. We can just cut small access holes on either side of the bottom of the pod to allow your servo lead to get kind of fed through there into the bottom. I'm going to put my receiver in the bottom of the plane, so I have yet to kind of decide how I want to run those servo wires. I have the servos on the top, but the receiver on the bottom. We'll see how that goes. But the last piece is your receiver. Okay, this happens to be what mine looks like. Yours may look a little bit different. I'm planning on putting the receiver down here in the bottom of the plane. It actually fits just about perfectly in this height. I don't know if you can see that. So it kind of zoom in a little bit here. So it fits just perfectly height-wise right there. So I'm going to be able to sit it right on the side. I'm going to have it facing the other way though. So my antenna will go in first. Feed that in there. And then we're going to put the receiver like so. And the antenna should be able to come up and kind of into this compartment here. So it can stick up and down kind of off to the side like that. Your antenna may be different, so you might want a different mounting position, but I'm planning on doing mine like that with the receiver tucked right up in there, if you can kind of see that along the sidewall there. Okay. So it's important to think about these things a little bit before you start gluing things together and stuff, and that way you can, figure out where all the pieces are going to go. Try to get a little bit of call it a dry fit. Okay. And allow yourself to get some time to think about, okay, this is going to go there, this is going to go there. Make sure you don't have any wires where the prop's going to be at in there, so that's not going to cause any problems that way. But that's really all the pieces we're going to need for the build. I did forget to mention we're going to have little control horns we put in each of these three surfaces, so I'll pull those out as we need them in the video, but you'll need those little 3D printed control horns as well. So there's our basic explanation. We'll break here and go to the next video where we start putting some of our servos in.